2025 is coming to an end, and as part of my journaling practice, I do a year-end reflections. And over the year, I've come across a lot of really good prompts and different questions that people suggest in your year-end reflections. So for example, there's a Canadian stationery company called Hemlock and Oak. They have a free download for a year-end review that I thought is really nicely laid out. I'm going to put a link in the description if you're interested in checking them out. They're a Canadian company and I love using their planners and notebooks. Now for this year though, I wanted something a little bit more condensed, because what I've noticed is in a lot of the year-end reflections, there's quite a lot of questions, but there's a part of me that wants to have one spot to do a little bit of a brain dump, and then I'm going to pull it apart and expand on it. So I decided that I'm going to try designing a little bit of a exercise for myself to do my year-end reflection this year. So what I came up with is that I should probably be looking at sort of three main areas in my life. So personal, and these will be things that are kind of about myself. Professional, so this is going to be my work life. And then the last category is going to be about relationships with others, maybe a community that you belong to. And I actually end up landing just the word relational because I kind of want to keep up with this theme here. So those are kind of the three areas that I want to reflect on. And then I thought, okay, how am I going to go about creating a little bit of that brain dump, and what structure would I put in it? And I thought I would have a little bit of a Marie Kondo Kumari moment and ask myself, what are the things that spark joy that perhaps I want to keep, and maybe what are the things that I want to get rid of. And I'm gonna also ask myself, what are the things that I want to add into my life? So I came up with 3 columns. I have toss, I have keep, and then add. So this gives me a little bit of a grid structure like that. For each of these categories, I thought I would also have one key question to help me process or unpack some of the things that I'm going to put into each grid. So for the toss category, I thought a good question to ask would be, what happened? What makes this something that I no longer want to keep? On the keep column, I think a good question to ask is, how can I make it better? Now the answer could be very well that I'm completely happy with how it is and I don't need to make it better. But I think this is always a worthwhile question to ask if I want to iterate and improve. And then for the add column, I think a good key question to ask is, why is this important for me? So if I were to put this into my life, I want to understand the why. So what I've done then is I just take this grid and I put it in my journal. So this is my bullet journal edition 2. It's the same journal that I've shown you in an earlier video. And I just set up a very simple grid with the heading 2025 reflection. And then I grid out the different items that I talked to you earlier about. And I thought I could use this space to maybe do a little highlight of what really stood out for me in each of these categories in 2025. And then I'm going to be brainstorming different items into the buckets. So for example, in my personal life, I really need to add a fitness routine. It is something that I've been wanting to do, and I tried kickstarting it in 2025 and I just didn't keep up with that habit. So that's going to be something that I'm going to be adding in here. And for example, in the professional side, something I want to keep is a practice that I've done to help me organize my workday, which is to go in every day with my morning meeting with the team, and then I'm going to go through my calendar and my email to set the priority for the day. When it comes to expanding this reflection, one of the things I'm gonna do is to go through my harp music repertoire list. I'm gonna look at last year's list, and I'm gonna ask myself which one I'm gonna park or maybe even toss because I gave up on it. It happens. Which pieces I'm gonna keep working on, and what pieces maybe I need to add or want to learn. So I'm gonna be kind of jumping over in here and do that exercise with my harp music. I also use Ravelry to keep track of my knitting project, and I do have a queue in there. And of course, in my project page, I can see which works are still in progress. So I can also use that same methodology and go through those projects and ask myself which one I should frog and which one I want to keep and continue to work on it. And then perhaps any new projects that I want to add into my queue. So if you have any other hobbies, you can use a similar way to kind of look through your project list and expand on it, because obviously this is somewhat limited in terms of categories, so you might want to add more if that works for you. So I'm gonna just be doing the brainstorm of the different items in here, and I probably won't have enough space to look at the item and take the deep dive into the reflection questions, and that's okay. I can just put all the items in here, and if I need more space to kind of talk about why fitness is important for me, for example, I can just go into the subsequent pages and write it out that way. That's not an issue, right? I've talked about wanting just a spot to consolidate or put all my thoughts into one spot, and then I can expand from there. So I think that's what I'm gonna do. And because I am kind of doing not just a little bit of look backward, but there's a little bit of forward looking going on, I thought that this information would be good to live in my 2026 journal. So that's why I'm kind of putting it in the front end of my next year journal. The pages in the front are just my heart pages, which I've talked about in another video. And then I'll go into my reflection page and we'll see how many pages it takes. And then I'll have this data with me as I go into next year. So I think this is what I'm gonna do this year, and I'm gonna give it a go, and let's see how that's working out for me. I would love to hear from you if you have any year-end reflection rituals or questions that you'd like to ponder on. What are they? Do you have a favorite set of questions that you perhaps go back to all the time? I would love to hear from you. Leave me a comment, and I'll see you in the next video.